I walked in on my boyfriend doing the dirty with his gay best friend. My boyfriend moved in with his gay best friend 6 months ago. Here's a little backstory. My boyfriend and I have been together for almost 2 years. My boyfriend is a social butterfly. He has 1,000,001 friends. I got used to this very quickly because most of them were female and a lot of them were gay. They actually became my friends too in some cases. Early on in the relationship, I met one of his best friends. Let's call him Tim. Tim is very, very gay. And he doesn't hide the fact that he thinks my boyfriend is very attractive. I asked my boyfriend if Tim ever made him feel uncomfortable, and he said no. But here's the thing. Tim sometimes says the most outlandish things about my boyfriend. Yeah, my boyfriend is hot. He's super fit, has a great face, so Timmy loves to comment on his body all the time. On several occasions, he's made really dirty jokes about my boyfriend's butt and the things that he'd like to do to my boyfriend's butt. Every time they go out, he's always trying to get my boyfriend drunk. And when he succeeds, he always takes off his shirt. So then my boyfriend spends the rest of the night shirtless. Obviously, this bothered me, but it didn't bother me enough to ever be concerned. Boy, was I wrong. A few weeks ago, Timmy threw a party and told my boyfriend not to invite me. I got really upset, so I showed up anyway. Timmy was trying to kiss my boyfriend. I instantly knew the only reason I didn't get invited to the party was so that Tim could try to get with my boyfriend. But here's the thing. My boyfriend had so much patience for Timmy. Even though Timmy would make such perverted jokes about my boyfriend would laugh it off and tell me it wasn't a big deal. But I knew it did make him uncomfortable. But of course, I show up to the party anyway. When I got there, I found Timmy sitting on the couch with my boyfriend. My boyfriend was clearly drunk, and Timmy was trying to kiss his neck. As soon as Timmy saw me, he got up from the couch and asked me what I was doing there. He said that it was a boys only party. When I looked around, it actually was. There were no other women there. I told Timmy that I was going to take my boyfriend home, and he said that I was overreacting and that my boyfriend was just having fun. I walk up to my boyfriend and he is so drunk, he doesn't even recognize me. I grabbed him and got him out of there. The next day, I told my boyfriend that Timmy was trying to kiss him when he was drunk. But of course, my boyfriend defended him. And my boyfriend confessed to me that he knows Timmy has a crush on him and that he's basically his best friend out of pity. Then my boyfriend actually told me I needed to stop being a bitch to Timmy. That's when my boyfriend basically told me I needed to stop being a bitch to Tim. I decided to ghost my boyfriend for 2 days because I was so upset at him. But here's the thing, my boyfriend was ghosting me too. So I decided to go over to his apartment because I hadn't heard from him in 24 hours. My boyfriend had given me a key to his apartment, by the way. But before I put in the key to unlock the door, I hear moaning sounds coming from inside. I instantly knew what was happening. Quickly unlock the door and find my boyfriend getting banged on the couch by his gay best friend. It's an image I can never forget. I'm actually traumatized. They separate and my boyfriend comes running over to me. First thing out of his mouth was, "We were just experimenting, it's not a big deal." He thought I was gonna be like, "Oh, cool." I look over at Timmy and he's on the couch smiling. I couldn't help myself and I slapped my boyfriend really hard. I ran away and didn't talk to him for 2 days. He finally came over to my apartment after those 2 days and explained that it was just something experimental. And he swears that they've never done it before and that they never will again. I took him back, but I don't trust him. He says that Timmy will always be his best friend and that I shouldn't get jealous. What should I do?
Am I the asshole for picking my child up from a sleepover because the family has a bath day? So I'll start by saying that I don't think I'm the asshole in this situation, but I was told I am because I didn't respect the family's household rules. But I'll give a little background before telling the story. I have a son named Jason who's 8 years old, and he has a best friend named Brandon. The boys have been attached at the hip since they were in daycare. Brandon's mom, Ashley, and I are friendly and speak frequently because of the boys. I normally don't let my kids stay over at other places, but I've always allowed Brandon to stay at my home because his mom doesn't have this rule. Not sure if it matters, but the reason I don't allow my children to stay over at friends' houses at this young age is because I feel like at that age, they are still pretty dependent on their parents. Plus, my children usually don't ask to stay over. They ask if their friends can stay at our place, which I don't mind since we have the space and all the fun things that kids enjoy. Okay, so on to the story. Last weekend, I broke a rule and let my son stay over at Brandon's home. 1, because he asked, and 2, because my daughter was at my mother's for the weekend, so I thought me and my husband could have a weekend to ourselves. While enjoying some adult time with my husband, Jason called me and said that he wanted to come home, but he was whispering, so I could tell something was up. I asked him why and what was wrong, and he said that Ashley wouldn't allow him to take a shower because it wasn't a bath day. I was confused. A bath day? I immediately called Ashley and informed her that Jason needs a shower and if she could just allow him to do so. She basically explained to me that since my child is in her home, that he must follow her rules, which is fair. I agreed with her and hung up. I called Jason back and told him that I would be there soon to get him and just to be ready. He was very happy about coming home. I wouldn't have picked him up if he said no, but surprisingly, he had already had his bag packed. When I pulled up, Ashley was outside saying how much of an asshole I was for teaching Jason that he doesn't have to follow other people's rules. I told her that he was uncomfortable and that I'm not going to keep my child in an uncomfortable situation that he doesn't want to be in, especially if I can help. She then told me that she allows Brandon to shower twice a day at my house, even though it's against her rules. So again, I told her that if Brandon had an issue, he never told me that, and that I would have took him home if he was uncomfortable. There was some back and forth arguing, but I tried to keep it calm since the boys were around. So
one of my best friends in year 7 tried to off me. It all started a random lunchtime when me, her and this Polish girl were just chilling, and me and the Polish girl exchanged a couple words in Polish together. We weren't trying to be disrespectful, like it was just a random interaction, and this girl became possessed. I don't know what took over her soul when me and the other girl spoke in Polish, but literally she threw her shoe at me and I was like, okay, that's rude, please don't do that again. Then she picks up the shoe off the floor and starts hitting me on my kneecaps with her flat slip on, and I was sort of looking down at my knees like, this is a little bit weird, because this is a strange way to want to scrap someone, because it didn't hurt me. She wasn't really doing it that hard, but I did tell her do you want to calm down, stop that, and she sort of didn't say anything to me. She didn't even look at me, she just carried on like a crazy person. So I was like, fine, I'm gonna go. So then I walk away, and then she's walking after me, and I'm like, this is a no. So I start walking faster, and she starts walking faster. Then I start running, and she starts running. You kind of get the gist of this. I ran away from her. I was faster than her. Thought I got away from her. Didn't get away from her. We bumped into each other again. And then she starts, instead of following me, she goes in front of where I was about to walk, goes down and gets these pebbles, these decorative pebbles that were outside the building. She starts putting them into her skirt, holding her skirt like this, collecting them like some fucking Hansel and Gretel type of shit. And I'm like, oh, hell fucking not today. Not today, darling. Yeah, she starts throwing them at my feet, and I'm like, yeah, fuck that. So I start 10 toes in away from her, yeah? Wasn't fucking about here. Got away from her feeling cocky. I've looked up where I was outdoors. I've looked up and there's stairs. Yeah, she's standing at the top of the stairs. My body froze. I became a paralytic in that moment. I was 12 years old, yeah? Don't know what was happening. This is the weirdest shit that's ever happened to me, but shut up and listen. She starts throwing them at me from the stairs, and I just couldn't move. And I think the third time she threw it, it hit me. And it hit me right here, in case you ever tried to tell me that the story's a lie. It's fucking not. Do you see that? That's a fucking scar from where she cracked my head open with a fucking rock. So these two girls come to my rescue that are in my form, and they're like, Angelina, what the fuck? And I'm like, I don't know. But they were like, come, go, go, go. One of them's holding her hand here to try and cover my eye from blood going in my eye. This is kind of nasty, but I'm not going to go into details. But yeah, it was nuts. I get to student services, to the medical room, and they're trying to sort of stop the bleeding. But I did have to go to A&E. Before I went to A&E, my dad came into the school, and all the time the teachers kept asking me what happened. And I was like, someone just threw something at me. I didn't even see it happen. I don't know. I was really not trying to snitch on this babe. I really didn't want to do that. I was not a snitch. It wasn't in my blood or my soul. She was meant to be my best friend. I was not trying to grass her up. I don't know why she did it at this point. I hadn't processed it, but I didn't want to snitch on her. But my deputy head was having none of my lies. And he was like, Angelina, and he kept pushing. And I burst into tears. Then I think everything hit me because I was in shock. Starts crying. I'm like, look, it was her. Please don't tell her off. I don't understand why. I don't know why. And then, yeah, so cut a long story short, she gets excluded for 2 weeks, yeah, for what she did to me. She came back to school and told everyone that she went on holiday to Africa, by the way. You went on holiday, you were in the learning centre, excluded. Anyways, months go by. I've moved forms by this point. We don't cross paths. We're not in the same lessons anymore. It's cool. Nothing really happened. I've got new friends, and this new girl that I'm really close with basically travels to school with the girl that did this to me. They got on the same bus and that, and they sometimes just talk, whatever, not my business. I think they went to primary school together as well. So it's summertime, and we were going to tennis club, me and this girl I'm friends with, and the girl that did this to me, she was there as well. And you know what? I thought, fuck it, I'm over it. There's no need to be hostile, it's calm. And we all played a match together in tennis club. And I was just whatever, it's fine. This was so long ago, so I can't exactly remember how this moment went down. But basically, me and her had a little weird altercation. It was passive aggressive. She was sort of saying something how do you know that I don't have a knife? And I was like, what? Basically, we had a little squabble about something, and she come out with that, and I was like, yeah, her dead, don't kill me. And then the girl that I got close with that travelled to school with her pulled me aside, and she's like, Angelina, we need to go to the teachers. I've got something to tell you, and we need to go right now. And I was like, babe, what are you talking about? I tell no fucking lies. This girl says, Angelina, that girl has drawn up a whole plan of how she wants to get rid of you. And I was like, what? And she was like, no, Angelina, like, she showed it to me, like, she told me she's got it up in her room, and, like, she's not, like, it's not a joke. I'm not joking with you. And this girl, by the way, was a bit, like, badder than me at that point. Like, she was a bit more confident than me. I was quite still at that point very nice girl, saw the good in everyone. She was also not someone that would ever snitch on anyone, like, and to hear her say that, at first I was like laughing it off, but she was like, no, Angelina, I'm not joking, like, I'm going to the teachers now, I'm telling them like what I know. And I was like, fine. And obviously I couldn't really tell the teachers much apart from like, this is what she told me. It turned out it must have been true. What that girl was saying, she must have had evidence to back it up, because the girl got excluded permanently from our school. I never really believed that was true, that she had drawn up this plan, until the day I heard she got excluded for real, like permanently. And then I was like, oh, hell fucking no. So basically I dodged a bullet, and I almost... my dance is almost done. My dance is almost done, but I'm still here to tell the tale. She got moved to a school really nearby in the same area, and like I still saw her sometimes, but she never spoke to me. She just looks at the floor. I don't know, it was so weird. This whole story is so fucking weird.
My 28F, sister 35F, is demanding I either abort or let her adopt my baby. I am currently 19 weeks pregnant. My partner, 29 male, and I are very excited, as this is our first baby and we have been trying for a few months. We announced the pregnancy a month ago at a dinner party we hosted, and everyone seemed surprised and overjoyed. My sister, who I will call Kay, immediately burst into tears and asked me how I could do this to her. I stared at her and asked, what? She started ranting, saying that I always got everything I wanted, which is not true. I worked hard for all that I have, and that she knew I got pregnant just so I could rub her infertility in her face. She screamed at me for 5 minutes about how I didn't deserve to be a mother and she should be the one pregnant right now. My parents left with her soon after, and the party was basically over. I was really disturbed by my sister's reaction, because we had been pretty close before, and she had never done anything like this. Kay called me the next day, apologizing for how she acted at my announcement, and asked if we could meet up for coffee. I accepted. We met up and she pretended as nothing had happened. Then she started a big speech about her infertility, how heartbreaking it is to be growing life inside of her, just to lose it, and how she had always wanted children of her own. She then proceeded to ask me if I could consider getting an abortion, to make things fair, or letting her adopt my baby. I stared at her and asked if she was serious. Kay said she was. I just dropped my part of the bill on the table and left. Elle texted me a rant that night about how I'd made Kay cry, and how all they wanted was to be parents, and that this meant so much to them, and I owed them for being more successful than them. I and my partner invested many years into our jobs, and we have worked very hard to earn what we earn now. I told them that my partner and I had been hoping for kids too, and that I was not giving up my baby. He hung up. She later sent me a long letter, 4 pages, about how she had always wanted to be a mother, and could I consider either abortion or letting her adopt my baby, how I should care about my older sister's happiness, how she would make a better mom, how the oldest kid should have the first grandchild, and how I could always just have another baby since it was so easy for me to conceive. After that, she quieted down some, and I thought we were done with this. Except, it wasn't. She had posted my sonogram on her FB, and captioned it, Elle and I are expecting. We can't wait to meet our little princess. I was seeing red. I texted her and demanded she takes the post down. No reply, backquote. I texted Elle. No reply. So I called my mother and told her what happened. She was able to make Kay take the post down, luckily enough. Kay has called me petty for calling my mom and has continued to demand I give up my baby. I sent her a letter explaining that I had had enough of her nonsense, I am keeping my baby, and that I recommend she get some help. I added that if she continues, I will not hesitate to call 999. This weekend, however, was the absolute last straw. My mom and dad have the spare key to my house, and while she was over at their house for brunch, she took the key. While my partner and I were at work, she broke into our house and stole all the clothing, blankets, nappies, bottles, and pretty much any other item we had bought for the baby, except furniture. It was later returned after my mom found it in her car. I called 999, but they told me I couldn't do anything because I had no proof and because it was all returned. My partner and I are moving in April, but I'm still scared my sister will find out where we live and take my child. I get that she's upset and jealous, due to her infertility, but that shouldn't mean I have to give up my baby. My parents know about this, and they have been doing their best to get her some help. She doesn't want to adopt, because she wants a child that's her own flesh and blood. I'm due in August, and the stress she's causing cannot and will not be good for me or the baby. My partner is looking into a cease and desist letter. Is there anything else I should do or say? I'm scared for my baby. Update, the support I've received from this website is overwhelming. Thank you all for your comments, although I couldn't reply to all of them, they are appreciated. We have had the locks changed, cameras installed, and a Ring doorbell. I've started saving every letter and screenshotting every message my sister has sent and plan to take them to court for a restraining order very soon. We have also been seriously documenting everything. My husband and I are planning a trip to Ireland for our anniversary next week, and it's going to be good to clear our heads from my sister. I've called 999 to report her for harassment, and they gave her a warning. She's contacted me saying that if I won't give her my child, I can at least pay for multiple rounds of IVF, which I have not replied to other than refusing. She's been begging my parents to convince me to give up my baby, which they refuse to do. They have also been given a statement that basically says that if they give her my contact information, they will not see my baby, to which they have agreed. I've since changed my phone number, and we are moving very soon. My sister does not know our new address. She actually stood on our stoop for 20 minutes a few days ago, banging on our door and yelling. My husband opened a window and told her that if she didn't leave, he would let the dog out, and threatened to call the police. We have a rather small, but hyper puppy who jumps on everyone and barks a lot, and she is quite scared of dogs, actually, so this made her leave. I started working from home last week, as did my husband, and we've followed the advice of one of the comments, washed all of the baby stuff, as well as made sure none of the food in our kitchen was messed with. None was, luckily. We're planning on getting a restraining order as soon as possible, and are looking forward to our trip. I'm already sick of being pregnant, and I'm not even in the 3rd trimester. I just want my baby.
Am I wrong for writing something in my journal to expose that my wife was reading it? I, male 29, my wife is 28. She is 5 months pregnant. I have a journal that I write in occasionally. My wife knows I have one, and I told her it's private. I don't have any big secrets, but it's a private space for me to write out some thoughts and give them time to think. A week ago, I started to suspect that my wife was reading my journal. I had written that it would be nice to see a friend again because we hadn't seen each other in over 2 years. The next day, my wife asked me about how that friend was doing and if we're planning on meeting up anytime. I found that a bit coincidental, then I started thinking back on some other coincidence, such as my wife getting me something relatively obscure for my birthday that I had written about. I wanted to be absolutely sure, so last night I wrote a fake thought that my wife was gaining too much weight in pregnancy and becoming unattractive. She's not, she's fit and fine. I know that sounds harsh, but I wanted to write something that was 100% fake, and I never had said or implied something my wife would just ignore. Well, today I went out to get groceries and came home to my wife crying. I asked her why, and she said she can't believe I thought she was overweight and unattractive. I asked her where she heard that, and she threw my journal at me. I asked her why she was reading my journal that she knew was private. She said that's not the point. The problem is what I wrote. I told her the whole point was for me to catch her reading it and how I know she does. She called me an asshole and said I need to apologize. By this time, I was pretty mad, so I said I will never apologize for anything I write in my journal, and she needs to realize that she is the only one who did something wrong. Otherwise, we have bigger problems in our relationship. She wanted me to leave the house, but I refused, so she is staying at her sister's now. I am committed to holding my line and not compromising, but I'm still angry. So, am I the asshole? Am I wrong for not taking down my video that was a gift from my best man? I have a sister that's 6 years older than me. My parents for years canceled on me last minute because of my sister. I have a basketball game. Oops, sorry, sister doesn't feel like going out. I'm graduating. Oops, sorry, sister had a bad day at work. They have missed both major and smaller events in my life because of her meltdowns. I met the love of my life. We decided to tie the knot. From the beginning, I told my parents how I'm worried my sister will ruin another special moment in my life. My mom told me over and over again that it would not happen. The day of my wedding, I received a voicemail from my mom saying they couldn't come because my sister's dog was sick and she was upset. I was hurt. My best man, however, is a jokester. He took my phone, then went to my fiance and asked if he could post a video of our wedding as a gift on social media. She loved his idea. I had no idea about it until I came home. Our honeymoon was at a lakeside cabin, no cell service. The post caption was, "My best friend. He's an amazing person even if his parents never showed up for him." The video was still pictures of us next to her parents, me on the dance floor cutting the cake, where you would normally see both parents in wedding pictures. The sound behind the video was my mom's voicemail explaining how they couldn't come because my sister's dog was sick. I came home a week later to hundreds of messages, family members from both sides insisting I take it down. I was told my sister hasn't stopped crying. My mom was refusing to leave the house. I may be the asshole here. I didn't take it down when I got my messages. I didn't call my family back right away. I waited until my vacation time was over at work and I enjoyed my time with my wife in our new home before I contacted anyone. My dad told me to take down the video. It was just a bad night for them, that they will make it up to my wife and me for not coming. My reply was, exactly how do you plan to make up my wedding? It's a once in a lifetime thing. You chose to ignore my feelings on the whole matter. Then he just repeated he will make it up to me. I told him I would take down the video only when he made up missing my wedding. Flustered, we both hung up the phone before we said things we shouldn't have. Am I the asshole here? I could have just taken down the video.
WIBTA if I uninvited Sil from my wedding after she told me gross lies about my fiancé? I 29F am getting married to my fiancé 30 male of over 3 years, November 5th. He has an older brother 33, younger brother 26, and 2 younger sisters 28 and 22. I get along really well with his parents and siblings ever since when we first started dating. I asked his sisters to be bridesmaids and his brothers are groomsmen. All his siblings act happy and normal still except his 28 sister, M. When we first started dating, his sister, 28, was cool with me, but as soon as we got engaged she flipped a switch. It started with her storming off when we announced our engagement, Christmas time last year. She apologized and said it made her feel bad about her recent relationship, lots of therapy and issues going on, and accepted being a bridesmaid anyway. She's gone from being friendly to gradually ignoring me anytime she sees me, but also remaining involved in wedding activities like when I went dress shopping and had my bridal shower. She criticizes everything about the wedding every step of the way, out loud. My future Mill and fiancé have both called her out on her behavior, but it doesn't help. I've confronted her about this gently, I don't do well with conflict, and asked if I did anything wrong. She denies anything is wrong and brushes me off. Fast forward to last Sunday, M asked me to grab coffee out of the blue. She said she's given a lot of thought to admitting this part of her life to someone, but felt she had to. She said that she and fiancé fooled around and eventually had sex, which continued for a bit but stopped years ago before me. She said she can't help but feel the only reason they stopped was because society gave them no choice and that anything besides what they swore would be a secret couldn't exist. According to her, they stopped when fiancé moved out of his parents' house. I don't believe one word of it. I just couldn't take any more. I freaked out and told her she's lying. I told her to never speak to me again and that she will not be allowed anywhere near my wedding. I told my fiancé and he was shocked. I told him I don't want her at our wedding and I know it hurt him. He didn't push back, but he said it's going to cause a lot family issues and they're going to tear her apart if they find out what she did to me. He called her and lost it on her. He asked me to give it a little bit of time before I pull the plug on her being in the wedding, even though it's warranted and that it's ultimately my decision, but he does want her there. I have a lot of anxiety from this building up and I don't want her there at this point. Who even says something like that? But I just feel guilty because I know that I can't remove her quietly from the wedding. That she's going to be his only sibling, not there and not in photos, etc. I don't even know how we would explain it to family. It's been a couple days and she hasn't reached out, but I'm just so confused because it's next month and I don't want this to blow up last minute. IATA. Update. Had a lot of people on IATA call me out for flipping out on M during coffee and not keeping my cool to talk to her rationally. So I called her this morning and told her I just want to talk, no anger, no yelling. I went over to her apartment and just told her to tell me what she can. M said she felt like they always had a mutual attraction to each other when they were teens but didn't do anything. When she went to college, she asked to use his desktop since her laptop wasn't fast enough and would leave hints like browser history of that kind of taboo spicy videos and then eventually just leave the page up that she was watching. I guess without going into specifics, she said they supposedly started this when she was 19 and right before his 21st. Said it continued until he moved out at 23. She asked him if he wanted to do mutual touching themselves with her and it lasted for a few months before she said it escalated to touching the other and eventually intercourse. So they both lived at home at this point and Mill has always been saw. Their parents like poker and still go to a weekly game at a friend's house. According to M, they had a specific day a week for this back then and they did this on that night when parents were away. Besides that time frame, they would coordinate if a home alone opportunity could happen. I asked her if she can give me any text proof or anything and she said she has none. I asked if anyone in the family knows or can confirm any of this. She said no one found out and they never came close to being caught. I asked if this kind of relationship happened with other siblings and she seemed offended at me asking that and said that it's not a kink but just a specific attraction to one person, which happened to be her brother. At this point I got super upset again and told her she's not giving me any proof besides her word and that her brother is denying it. I told her I'm going to go to Mill with this information today. She told me she'd deny it to anyone and that this is the last time she will talk about this to me. She just wanted me to know that if they weren't siblings and forced to stop, he probably wouldn't be getting married to me. As I was leaving, she told me that his parts curved to the right. My body got cold because it's true. I know that it's not unheard of for family members to have seen private parts by accident or like when they're young, but it's only really noticeable when he's erect. So I have a lot of dread right now and I need to figure this out. I told my Mill that I have to speak to her. I just can't process or deal right now. I do not know how to confront fiancé with the new information and I didn't even tell him I was going to see M again. I will tell him I'm going to speak to Mill today though. My £8.50 revenge on my cheating, thieving ex. When I was at uni, I started dating this guy. At first, he was wonderful. Dedicated to his studies, fun to be around, attentive, and always surprising me with things, working hard at his job, etc. Then, bit by bit, things unraveled. He started skipping classes. Then he barely bothered to go at all. Worse still, he never helped around the house. Never washed up, cleaned up, did laundry, nothing. He was even fired from his job for too many no-shows. All he wanted to do was sit at home and play Xbox or browse the message boards and forums. This was in the days before social media, when dinosaurs roamed the earth. This left me having to pick up extra shifts, sometimes double and triple shifts, all while going to class and studying. I later learned that this was a pattern for him. He'd be really dedicated to whatever he set his heart on, but then get bored, and fall back into old bad habits. Then he'd find a new passion, and rinse and repeat. I knew I should have ended the relationship much sooner, but I held out hope that he would snap out of it, that maybe it was just exam stress getting to him. I desperately wanted things to go back to how they were. But it was not meant to be. I caught him cheating and threw him out. I was so stressed with everything that it wasn't until the next day that our joint savings account crossed my mind. There was a little over £5,000 in there, and bar a few hundred from him, the rest was money I had saved. I checked the account, and it was all gone. My ex had cleaned out the account and moved into a new flat with his side chick. I called the bank. There was nothing they could do. He was authorized on the account. I contacted the police. They told me there was nothing they could do since it was a joint account, so nothing criminal had happened. They suggested taking it to civil court, but said I'd probably spend more money than I got back in legal fees, so it likely wasn't worth it. My ex had stolen £5,000 and there was nothing I could do about it. I felt like such an idiot. I got even angrier when I saw his posts on various forums boasting about his new game consoles, new games, new TVs and gadgets. All bought with my money. I'm not usually a vengeful person. Petty on occasion, sure, but I've never wanted to exact revenge as much as I did right then. And I knew just how to do it. While I was a student, I temped every summer to help pay for my studies. One such job had been for a debt collection agency. The work was as shitty as you can imagine, but it paid really well, and it was only for a few months. My ex had been dodging debt for many years, and he was very proud of that fact. He was also proud of the fact that his debt was close to being statute barred and he hadn't paid a penny. For those of you who don't know, in the UK, creditors have about 6 years to collect a debt, and then it becomes statute barred. That means the money is still owed, but creditors have no legal way to enforce payment, such as using bailiffs. My ex was a few months away from reaching statute barred status. However, what a lot of people don't know is that making a payment on that debt resets the clock. If you pay any amount, then that 6 years starts from scratch. Previously, I had used my insider knowledge to help him dodge the debt. Now, I would use it to hit him where it hurt. By the end of our relationship, I was handling everything, including his debts. I had the paperwork, so I knew who he owed and how much. I called his creditors up. I was honest and said I was a friend calling to make a payment on his behalf. I didn't pretend to be him because that would be a big legal no-no. They weren't allowed to disclose any details, but they were able to take payment. I paid the minimum I could on each debt, about £1 on most, but one had a minimum payment of £1.50. It was the best £8.50 I have ever spent. I also made sure to give them his new address and contact details, as well as his parents' address. Having worked in the biz, I knew they wouldn't change the address since I wasn't the account holder, but they would note it. They had various systems where they could search for his name against that address and see if anything came up. If they got a hit, they'd change the address. The trap was set. All I had to do was wait. A few months rolled by. Then it happened. His posts on the forums went from boasting about his new gaming PC to panic about a court date. He called me and begged for advice. I told him to F off. Seeing I wouldn't help, he asked for advice in the forums. One of his online friends told him not to turn up to court, that way they wouldn't be able to prosecute without him there. It was terrible advice that was 100% untrue. In fact, not showing up is one of the worst things you can do, especially in civil court. This was getting better and better. The court date came and went. My ex, naturally, didn't go. A few weeks later, my ex posted photos of his empty flat. Bailiffs had cleaned him out and taken every last one of his shiny new gadgets and toys. On top of that, he ended up with several CCJ's county court judgments. These are a big deal and can seriously damage your credit history, making it hard to get bank accounts outside of basic ones, near impossible to get credit, including getting a mortgage, and it can also make it hard to rent a place since many landlords don't like renting to people with CCJs as they're considered high risk. He also won't be able to find jobs in the financial sector. Now that he was broke and didn't have nice things, his side chick left him. I never got my £5,000 back, but it felt good to see everything he bought with his ill-gotten gains taken away. Hope that £5,000 was worth it. For anyone wondering how a student accrued 6 years of debt, he started at the university I attended when he was 25. He had initially gone to a different university at 18 but dropped out at 19 and went into the world of work. Then he convinced his parents to fund a business degree. He wanted to become an entrepreneur. And for anyone worried about the age gap, I deferred my uni start date by a few years so I could travel. I was 22 when we started dating. He was 26.